7:09 this Tuesday morning. You know, for many, the events of the last 3 months are still not real.
Yeah, they aren't. The attacks on America seem more like topics for a novel, not the stuff of global headlines, which is what makes a former Oklahoma lawmaker's experience so strange. Gene Atkinson published a book about bioterrorism 2 years before the September 11th attacks. New this morning, he joins us here in our studio to talk about many of the eerie parallels. Good morning, Gene.
Good morning, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing great. Actually, I have a chill going up my spine. Here's the book right here, right off the bat, front cover. This book begins in Western Afghanistan. Tell us about the storyline. How did you develop this?
Well, it's, of course, a Clancy-type novel. It's a story of a Osama bin Laden plot to poison millions of America, and it's basically an adventure novel that I started writing 2 years ago. Had no idea it would be so prophetic.
You had, I mean, again, attention, all fiction, but as you watched the events on September 11th unfold, what was going through your mind?
Well, of course, I was sickened that it was so prophetic. I had hoped that something like this would be a long time in coming. And then when the anthrax issue came up, it became even more relevant. And I sat down the other night, reread it again for the 80th time, and was amazed at how many things in the book reflect current events.
Gene, did this just come out of your mind, or as a former lawmaker here in Oklahoma, did you have some inkling that something like this might take place someday?
You know, if you went into the research and started researching that subject, there was an awful lot of information available. It was clear that terrorism was going to be with us well into the 21st century and that Osama bin Laden was going to be one of the major players. It was something we didn't think about, but once you started delving into it, all the facts were there.
How much did you rely on your military experience? You were decorated in both Vietnam and Desert Storm, and also rely on your experience in government to write this book.
Well, of course, you write about what you know, and I did serve in Desert Storm, recalled as a Navy captain, had an opportunity to work with the CIA and the State Department and foreign governments. And that gives you a little insight when you start the book and get a feel for the kind of environment that you're going to be working with.
And Gene, as you continue to watch world events unfold, what do you think the likelihood that your book, again, this was more a bioterrorism attack on the United States through a poisoning method. Do you think that's still a possibility as you see the way things are unfolding?
I think what I learned from my research is that we're very vulnerable in a number of areas because of the kind of nation we are. We're a free nation. We're a country that has relatively open borders. We have a lot of personal freedoms, and that makes us particularly vulnerable. I came to the conclusion that the way to most effectively protect our country from this kind of thing is to eradicate the people that would do us harm.
And again, through your research, the Homeland Task Force is meeting today, as a matter of fact, to talk about safeguards for the state of Oklahoma. With your experience, with the research you've done for this book, what would be your top 2 or 3 suggestions for them?
Well, you know, I served as a Naval Liaison Officer for the Department of Emergency Management during the Alfred P. Murrah building bombing. So I had an opportunity to take a look at what our needs are. And of course, our needs are the same as everybody else in the country. We need to be protected on a chemical basis, on a biological basis, as well as security for our most important installations.
And Gene, I just have a couple of seconds left, but as a military man, your thoughts about how this campaign is unfolding?
Well, I'm very pleased with it. I think it's moving along exactly as it should. I think we were a little slow to ramp up on the bioterrorism aspect, but that's getting up to speed. And the other day, someone announced, I think Roche, that they had a new test for anthrax that was much more efficient, much quicker. So we have the resources as a country, the only country in the world that does, to protect ourselves most effectively against this threat.
Well, Gene, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Ed.
Gene Atkinson, folks. And again, his book entitled Internal Invasion. Here's what it looks like. It's currently on store shelves. Check with your local bookstore if you're interested in getting a copy of Internal Invasion.
Can't believe it, just looking on the front cover there.
I tell you, it sends a chill down the spine just reading the cover. Wow.
It's chill.
3 years before.
Advertising Associates, Gene Atkinson was a military officer stationed in the Middle East during Operation Desert Storm. He later went on to become the Director of Communications for the Governor of Oklahoma. This first-hand experience gives Atkinson insight into the mind of the enemy and the way the government functions in times of crisis. His latest novel, Internal Invasion, will keep you on the edge of your seat, and I recently had the opportunity to talk with him about it. It's so ironic to me that you wrote this book, what, 2 years ago and set it in Afghanistan. So it was completely written long before September 11th.
It was completed in June of 2000. And I don't know if I'm prophetic, but all the research that I did, Jerry, led directly to that. I mean, once you started looking into it, you knew that Osama bin Laden was going to be a player in any terrorist act, and his bases were in Afghanistan as well as other places. So all these were facts that were readily available. It's just no one was particularly interested in them, I suppose.
Yeah. Give us an idea of the plot.
It's a story of a bioterrorism plot that is hatched by one of Osama bin Laden's cells, and it's designed to infect millions of Americans. They actually operate out of Dallas, Texas, and once there is a race from the person who is in Afghanistan who gets to the United States to set the plot in motion, and at the same time, there's a race by the government officials who know something is going to happen, but they don't exactly know what, when, or where, and so they're racing to try to find this out. Along the way, an advertising agency in Oklahoma City, oddly enough, gets involved unknowingly with the plot, and they start becoming suspicious. So it's a race against time, really, kind of a Tom Clancy type novel, that sets the government against this plot to infect millions of Americans, and how we stop that plot.
I love the introduction, the little dedication quote from President Bush. Why did you include that?
You know, I thought that really embodied the spirit of this book, is that we have faced threats and dangers before as a country. We've met them, we've overcome them, and we will do so with this as well, too. So this is a positive novel. This is a novel about how America takes a threat, meets it, and overcomes it. And I didn't want to get too far away from that.
You have extensive experience in that part of the world. Anyway,
I was recalled active duty during Desert Storm. I was a Navy captain. I was in charge of the Joint Information Bureau in Dubai, and our responsibility was to deal with international media for the entire United Arab Emirates. So I had an opportunity to work with the State Department, the CIA, and foreign governments, and that gives you a little bit of background into the workings of that part of the world.
Is that what made you write it, really?
Actually, no. What made me write it was I did some research in some futurist magazines several years ago to try to find subjects that would be on the reading public's mind when I got the book finished. And it was clear to me that terrorism, whether we liked it or not, was going to be a major issue that we'd be dealing with in the 21st century, and that Osama bin Laden would be a major player.
What major players did you deal with over there when you were there? Any names that are now familiar to us?
Oh, I think just at that point our focus was on Saddam Hussein, and who is, I think, going to be someone we hear more from. I think there's a very good chance that he's been involved in the anthrax issue in some way. We haven't tested him in 4 years. We haven't inspected him in years. We don't know what he's doing except anything he can to amass weapons of mass destruction. So he was the main focus during that time, and I met people who knew Saddam Hussein growing up, and I had an opportunity to really work in that community, and that was very helpful to me.
What kind of a reaction have you had so far to the book?
Very positive. Now, you know, it's people don't come up and tell you they hate the book, but
That's right.
you gotta count their votes by how many you sell, and it's sold out in Oklahoma City 3 times. We get reports from around the country that it's doing very well. I even had a lady in Massachusetts call me the other day because it wasn't in her bookstore yet, and she wanted it so badly she'd heard me on a radio show. Wanted to have it, and you appreciate it when people go to that kind of effort to get your work.
You bet. What's your favorite character in here?
Well, I like Mike Phillips. Mike Phillips is an FBI agent. He's the greatest part of a government agent who works for the people, and he works hard, and I like him a lot, and I like the director of the FBI, who's a very moral person as well. So, and I particularly like the female lead in this, a lady named Laura Newcomb, who is a rough, tough, beautiful person, and has all the right character qualities that you want in an executive.
Would there be a sequel possibility to
Well,
this, do you think?
you know, I've had so many people ask me that, and I'm very flattered that they would ask. I've been working on a book called Blood Moon at Cabin Creek, which is a story of a Confederate soldier who is transported ahead 150 years in time in the middle of a battle. But if the demand is great enough, we certainly will go ahead and work on a sequel, because it's built for a series of books.
Yeah, especially with this heightened fear about bioterrorism. What do you feel about what we're doing in reference to bioterrorism? And
I think
where
we've been
it's
a
all
little
going?
slow in ramping up on it. I think overall the president's doing an absolutely wonderful job in this war. I think we're getting up to speed with bioterrorism already. There are new tests for anthrax, for example, that are much quicker and much easier to do. We are vulnerable in so many areas because we're a free country that really to protect us on all fronts is virtually impossible. The best way to do that is simply to eradicate the people that would do us harm. And that's why I think the president's effort in the war that he's conducting right now is right. Bioterrorism will get there. Nobody has the resources this country has. When we set our mind to something, we accomplish it. And that's why I think if we had to have a threat like this, we're the luckiest people in the world to be in this country to protect ourselves.
I agree with you. And people can get this book locally?
Locally,
right?
at all the bookstores. They can go to the internet, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. But it's at Full Circle. In fact, I'll be doing a book signing at
Soon
Full
there?
Circle soon.
Great. Internal Invasion. Gene Atkinson, thank you.
Terrorism has taken a leap off the pages of fiction and into our daily lives. Today we are joined by an Oklahoman with quite an eerie connection to the bioterrorist attacks in our country. Gene Atkinson is a retired Navy captain. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you.
The book is Internal Invasion. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a story of a bioterrorism plot by Osama bin Laden to poison millions of Americans. And it was written 2 years ago.
So that makes it very interesting, and it obviously is fiction. The events do mirror our world today. What did you think about that after the attacks, having written this book?
Well, it became oddly prophetic, and I never expected the events in the book to actually be mirrored as much as they are by actual events.
Being a retired Navy captain, I would think your military background certainly was something you drew much from in the book. Tell us about that.
Well, as you well know, I was recalled to active duty during Desert Storm and was in charge of all the U.S. press operations in the United Arab Emirates. And during that time, I had an opportunity to work with the CIA and the State Department and foreign governments, and that gave me a little bit of a background to start the research on the book.
I bet it did. You know, here in Oklahoma, we of course have experienced terrorism. Did that influence your decision to write a story, since you said you did start that 2 years ago?
It did influence me almost negatively. There was still an awful lot of pain in our community from the Murrah bombing, but I felt like it was an issue that we had to deal with, and so eventually I decided to go ahead and use it as my storyline.
Gene Atkinson, a pleasure to visit with you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for being here today. Again, the title of the book, Internal Invasion.
If he is ever captured or killed. Meanwhile, the government is hoping to get ideas about what to expect in the war on terrorism from our nation's writers. They're asked to think and come up with possible scenarios for attacks. One Oklahoma author has done exactly that. In a book written 2 years ago, he laid out a bioterrorism attack on the U.S. by Osama bin Laden, and the method is something probably in your home right now. Our Terry Watkins got the first look at this book, and Terry, what's the author talking about?
Believe it or not, Susan, he's talking about vitamins. And as we get into this, remember, all of this was dreamed up and put on paper 2 years ago.
Osama bin Laden, since September 11th, his name and picture have been everyday news. But 2 years ago, an Oklahoma author picked bin Laden as someone who could and would try to destroy America.
It's a book that I wrote 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago actually, and it was one that is a bioterrorism thriller. It's an Osama bin Laden plot to poison millions of Americans.
The book, called Internal Invasion, a work of fiction. In it, bin Laden uses vitamins to begin killing the American public.
When I started doing the research, it became pretty evident that terrorism was going to be a threat to us well into the 21st century, and that Osama bin Laden was going to be one of the key players. I never had any idea that the book would become as prophetic as it has.
But is all of this too much reality for the American public right now?
It is a creation of fantasy, and it's really a story of a threat that we face as the United States and how we counter that threat. And I think that's the important message. Whatever threat is out there, we as a country will effectively counter it.
Now, this is Atkinson's first book. Another thing that makes it interesting, the characters are Oklahoma and Oklahoma City based, and will be in bookstores later this week. Reporting live in the newsroom, Terry Watkins, Eyewitness News 5.
Thank you, Terry. When the World Trade Centers were hit, there was a lot of talk about a novel Tom Clancy had written with a very similar situation.